Society is only what we make of it. So we can survive, or we can die. We can succeed or fail according to our own dispositions, our own courage. And Undercity is the portrait of all these people trying to survive in a harrowing circumstance, but also finding love in there and life, which is, I think, very, very important at all times.
Welcome to Ira's Everything Bagel, where I talk with intriguing people about everything, their passions, pursuits, and points of view. Please like, share, and subscribe. It really helps the channel, and I appreciate it. My guest today is acclaimed novelist Monte Schulz. He's a author of the genre-blending fantasy sci-fi thriller Undercity. Monte takes us beneath the surface, literally into a hidden underground civilization that feels both wildly imaginative and uncomfortably close to our own world. He's also the son of Peanuts creator Charles Schulz, which gives him a fascinating creative lineage. But Monty has very much carved out his own literary voice. We'll talk about Undercity, storytelling, world building, legacy, and what drives him to explore the shadows beneath society. The book is available on Amazon and all the usual places. For everything about Monty and the book, go to undercitythebook.com and his prior book, metropolisthebook.com, and you can follow him on X and Facebook. And Monty, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thank you for inviting me.
Absolutely. So, how did you start down this road to fiction writing as opposed to kind of anything else you wanted to do?
Well, when I was in college and I was 21, 20 years old, I started writing music, song lyrics to doing lyrics to other people's music, then writing my own music. And my dad saw I had a ear for lyrical prose, then poetry,
Mhm.
and so he had me read passages from Thomas Wolfe, right, and John Steinbeck, the Tortoise Crossing the Road and Grapes of Wrath, and then he gave me Carl Sandburg to read, and Joan Didion and Truman Capote, and I became interested in that. I shifted from music to prose, or first music, poetry, prose, and started my writing career sort of like that.
When you were growing up, because your father was famous, were you able to meet people in that world that intrigued you, stimulated you, inspired you to start going down that road of prose and poetry?
No, first of all, Dad wasn't famous when I was a kid, so that's always important for people to know. He became famous with three books. Well, three entities. First, Happiness is Warm Puppy, that little tiny book, came out with Determined Productions, Connie Boucher, and then You're a Good Man, Charlie Brown. Words and music by Clark Gessner, and so the stage play, the musical, became part of his life, and then shortly thereafter, Charlie Brown Christmas, which put him into the popular culture. So Dad became famous maybe when I was in my mid-teens. Before
Oh,
that, he was just my dad who had these comic strips in a newspaper, and I didn't even read them in the newspaper. He would bring when they're published as books, they came back, and he would bring them to the house, and I would sit there and read them, wait till the next one came out, right? So I don't remember reading the newspaper. That I suppose I did a little bit, but and I wasn't interested in. I read Ray Bradbury, and I read H.G. Wells. So I was interested in science fiction then,
mhm.
not literary writing. Science fiction, and then history. I was always reading history. So I didn't. So the fiction I write right now, I would not have read when I was even in my teens or early days in college. It just didn't really interest me. So it's sort of something that descended on me later on, and being interested in how people write, the lyrical writers. So I was interested in language more than story, I guess. And genre. Um, my interest in science fiction kind of evaporated as I went to literary fiction. Interested me more than, and I still reading history. I read history and theology because I was a religious studies minor, just because I thought it was interesting, the origins of different religions, as a minor part of my life, but mostly literary fiction. That's what interested me, the language, right?
Well, when growing up, you grew up, you didn't grow up in a metropolis, which is the name of the first novel that we'll talk
Yeah,
about
yeah,
as
yeah.
well. But you grew up in a smaller area. So did that also help form your approach to writing?
Yeah, I like rural writing. I grew up on a property, 20-acre property bordered by apple orchards and redwood ravines. That was about 4 miles outside of a town called Sebastopol, which had maybe, I don't know, 3,500, 4,000 people. So I was a country person. And most of the writing that interested me was rural settings. Carson McCullers, Truman Capote, and then of course Steinbeck. And I was not interested in urban writing at all. I didn't read urban novelists for years until maybe until I was an undergraduate, and then more so as a graduate student. But so rural writing interested me, and it's always been part of my writing here and there.
Mhm. And you got an MA in American Studies
Yeah.
from Santa Barbara, UC Santa Barbara.
Yes, I did that because I was in the English department, but I was more interested in reading Faulkner than Shakespeare. And I was also interested in the Far West, reading Day of the Locust, Nathaniel West, people like that, reading about Hollywood novels. Because I was in Southern California, I started reading about the early days of Hollywood. So I read a lot of Hollywood novels. And and I was interested in small town America, so I read small town novels. That was the focus of my master's thesis, called "On the Way Home: America and the Small Town." So yeah, it's actually pretty easy to see where my writing and interest came from. But I've had to bloom outwards, right? So I only read American writers for a while, and then I started reading Gabriel Garcia Marquez. I remember reading Autumn of the Patriarch. I was impressed by that. And then, as you should, as you grow older, you should read more widely. But I still like reading, Stephen King, reading John Grisham as I got older. Uh, I read popular fiction as much as I read literary fiction, probably more because it's hard to find literary novels I really like. Popular novels are easy to read, and I learned storytelling from the popular novels, pacing, and then I learned language from the literary writers.
Was there any one particular author that influenced your writing?
Carl Sandburg. Yeah,
Yeah.
Carl Sandburg for sentence rhythms. I love Sandburg's my favorite writer. There's that thing. If you're in a desert island, you only could have one book. What would it be? And for me, it would be complete poems by Carl Sandburg. I can look at it endlessly. I even have a first edition of The People Yes. So I don't know how I got it. I found it years ago. I was really happy I got that book. But I read his. In fact, just recently. I was I haven't been sleeping well, so I get up at 5 o'clock in the morning, go downstairs to my living room, and I had a collection of Sandburg's poems I hadn't read in years. So I was reading. I read about, I don't know, I read about 30 of them or something like that. I just and am reminded why I write. When I read Sandburg, I'm reminded my where my passion for writing actually came.
And we're going to talk about Undercity in just a second, but
Uh,
are you optimistic or pessimistic about the future of fiction and literature in the West?
well, literature is um, is endless. It doesn't die. I don't, whether it peaks or not is always debatable. More people read now than ever. Some people think they don't, but really a bestseller. I think Peyton Place and those books in the 50s were bestsellers at 20,000 copies or something. America's never had a big reading public, particularly for literary fiction, but writers will write regardless of the marketplace. They just do. Faulkner didn't sell particularly well. Gatsby was essentially thought of as a failure at the time. Cormac McCarthy, apparently, until All the Pretty Horses, was selling, I don't know, less than 2,000 copies of his first 4 or 5 books. But he persisted to write. All literary writers write regardless of the marketplace. Everyone would like to sell a lot, but you
Right.
can't guarantee that, right? So,
Yeah, I was thinking more cosmically or universally in the sense that is there a decline in literature because the education levels have been dropping over the last couple of decades? Is there, or do you, I know it doesn't matter to you as a writer because you're going to write no matter what, but I'm wondering in the larger scope of things in society in general, whether there's going to be an increasing market for literature because a lot of the people you mentioned, Carl Sandburg, et cetera, some of the great authors of the 20th century. Um, if you ask a typical person today if they even know the name, they probably would say no.
Well, that's true, but I thought it was interesting in a James Jones, short James Jones novel. Remember, wrote From Here to Eternity. He had a short book called The Soldier, and in it they have a little squad. They're protecting the bluffs over East Oahu from a potential Japanese attack, right? And they're trying to decide who should be in charge of the squad, and they nominate one of their guys who had graduated grammar school. Okay, so that was a level of, and we tend to think that people were more educated in the past. It's not true. People were very much lower education. A college, a high school diploma was almost worth a PhD back, say 80 years ago,
Mhm.
because people just didn't read. They weren't educated. They dropped out of school early. So I would say, in contradiction to what you were saying, I
No, that's
believe that
fine. I like
I
it. I like it.
I really believe I don't believe that we can look at writing or reading at all in decline. I just don't. I think when we talk about people being on the internet and all of that, I say, well, okay, but at least they're reading. Because remember, before it was TV, 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 TV. I feel in some ways that the people arguing that cell phones and desktop computers and internet is it's bad for us are really secretly TV executives trying to get people back to TV. I mean, come on, seriously. I mean,
Very
no,
good point. Okay,
yeah,
fair enough. Well, let's
yeah,
talk about Undercity. This is, I don't want to call it a sequel to, but it continues the story of your previous novel,
yeah. It's okay. So um,
which is
I start.
Metropolis. That was your previous novel.
Yeah, so Metropolis was a book I started. I saw on one of my old laptops a save file for Metropolis in 2001 and the last one in 2003. I wanted to write a novel about a war. I wanted to write about war. And so simultaneously, I was interested in eugenics and I read a book, well, consulted a book called War Against the Weak. Um, that so with about eugenics and the idea of improving a society through mating the best people. Nothing wrong with that, right? But when it came to America, the idea was to get rid of the people we don't like. So and that wasn't you'd think, well, getting rid of the blacks, the Italians, the Jews, and everything. No, no, no. It was like rural people. They wanted to go after them first, right? The ones these enclaves in Appalachia and areas. They wanted to get rid of them, and they actually talked about disposing of 14 million people. Okay, to raise the level. But as we know, and eugenics was taught. Eugenics is a word invented by a guy named Englishman Francis J. Galton. It means well born, uh, uh, sort of a adaptation from the Greek, and and it was taught in high schools and colleges, universities, advocated by Winston Churchill, Margaret Sanger, Henry Ford. Lots of very famous people from the time were in favor of eugenics. But what happened with eugenics is Auschwitz and the
Mhm.
concentration camps. They saw that was the logical extension of eugenics. So I got the idea of writing a book set in a society that has decided its social problems with crime and disease and feeble-mindedness all come from a virus or some bug called they called it spiriosis, which is they just invented it so they could run people through testing centers, fake testing centers, and then get rid of them. So, and when it first appeared, when they first organized this, they disposed of 1 million people, putting them on trains, setting them off in the hinterlands of the East. Metropolis and Undercity take place in what we know as France. I gave the book up, Metropolis, between 2003 and 2019 because I couldn't figure out how my main character, a college student, could be studying the Greeks and the Romans in a fictional republic. I couldn't figure it out. Also, I couldn't figure out where the book is taking place.
Right.
So I don't know. In 2019, I followed Ray Bradbury's axiom, which is why is it? How is that so? Because I say it's so. All right, that's he studies it, and then I realized the book that this republic is in France, what we know as France, and that history bifurcated 1,500 years ago and created this society. So the book is not, it's not it doesn't read like a fantasy. It reads like a real novel. Car names are different, as they would be, right? There's no Ford and Chevy and everything, but and some of the food is different, but the way the characters talk is sort of like us. If there's a time reference to us, it would be sort of like turn of the last century, maybe 20s, something like that. Technology is different, but just barely different. They have video phones, which just came out, and they don't have airplanes, but they have radioactive shells. And so Metropolis runs its plot to the end, with for my character Julian and his girlfriend and a couple of friends and his old roommate from college. And then Undercity picks up where Metropolis ends with a different set of characters. But that narrative with his character Marco Grinnell, who's in Metropolis, is only maybe 270 pages. The rest of the book is made up of vignettes or short stories from different people telling the story of this metropolis, of this society, of the world of eugenics. And so you have the thief. It's hard for me to remember them all. The thief, the soldier, the orphan, the physician, the cleric, the Gypsy again, several, the Perfect Man. I have a lot of them, and they're all telling the story, and they all these vignettes take place in the past, but at different times. So you can actually read Undercity. You can bypass Marco's journal, which is the through line narrative, and just pick it up and read in the middle on some of these little vignettes. Most of them are like, I don't know, two, three, four, 5 pages long. So they're like
Well,
short stories,
they're
right?
like bite-sized versions.
Yes, exactly,
Yeah.
exactly. Yeah, so they're really easy to read. And they're fun to read. The book is kind of fun to read because you can skip around different narratives,
Sure.
different stories. There is some magic realism in it, in the Gypsy, but there's the narratives are all different. The characters are different. The way they write, they talk, the way they see the world is different. Even Marco's narrative had a lot of his chapters are pretty short. So and then in the book there's a novel within the novel, excerpts from a novel called Eros and the Owl, and there's seven of them, two people on an estate at the end of the world, well, what they thought was the end of the world, and people just falling asleep, no more mammals, right? But there are birds and fish and whatever like that, and they're just there, and so they have conversations. So there's seven of those chapters, and they're all pretty short. So it's easy. I don't know. The book it's easy to read, but it's about what happens to society. It's much more concerned with eugenics than Metropolis is. My publisher
I
gave
would think, though, that eugenics is an uncomfortable topic for many people because of the example you just gave, that the
right, right.
final outcome it was Auschwitz.
Yes, but the true outcome was the destruction of Germany and the Nazis. That's the outcome of it. Okay. So I mean, the Nazis didn't end with Auschwitz being triumphant and Dachau and Bergen-Belsen. Uh, they lost, and millions of people died, but the Nazis themselves were destroyed. And sometimes society has to be like that, has to be destroyed so the world can go on, right? So Germany became a great nation, and Japan became greater nations because they were destroyed by the Allies. Unfortunately, that's what had to happen. Um, but this book concerns that. A lot of people that read it, my publicist was like, "Wow, Monty, this book is so grim. Is there any good stuff in it? Sure. Was there a good ending? Yeah. Don't tell me. Don't tell me. Well, okay, but I know what to tell you. It's there's a lot of happy stuff in the book, but what are you going to say? It's like writing a novel set in Berlin, or Hamburg or Dresden in 1943. What are you going to do, right? Especially if you're not a Nazi. It's just it's a precarious life.
Well, on the other hand, because you could talk about depressing nonfiction, but that doesn't mean you have to have depressing fiction. You could write something happy as a fictional
Well,
situation
yeah,
too.
yeah. Well, I mean, Metropolis has a happy ending, and Undercity has a sort of a bittersweet ending. Pretty happy in a way. Actually, if you look at the whole thing, as I explained to a friend who finally read the book, I said, look at the ending. Well, how it ends. He goes, oh yeah, it's a good ending, right? Yeah. Oh yeah, you're right. Okay, okay. So you're just there are grim things. I mean, again, what are you going to write? What are you going to talk about? The war in the Soviet Union was brutal, right? 25 million Russians killed by the Nazis. At the same time, the Soviets killed three-quarters of the German army out there. So I have two of the vignettes talk about what's happened in what I call the Eastern provinces, right? So, and it's, yeah, there are terrible things happen out there, but that's the nature of war. How can it be happy? But there are happy elements. There's one of the vignettes called The Bookseller, right? It's about books and their meaning in our lives. So there's a lot of happy stuff in this book. It's not all grim.
Good. When you were talking about Metropolis, I was wondering, did you get any inspiration from the film?
No, it has nothing to do with it at all. And people ask me about that, and I guess I could say in the same way, no, it has nothing to do with Superman either. It's just a title I made up years ago.
Fair
And
enough.
I'm not unaware of Fritz Lang's movie, and I'm not unaware of the Superman story either, because I love Superman. But it has nothing to do with them at all. Um,
When you were writing the sequel, I'll call it, is it fair to say the sequel?
here's what it is. It's a companion to
Okay.
it.
Because
It's a companion.
when you were writing the companion, and frankly, when you're writing Metropolis, did you have a set discipline? Because I know that discipline is important for you as a writer. Did you have a set time and place to write? And for example, did you devote X amount of hours per day, or did you just know that sometime during the day you were going to sit down and write a little bit? What was your methodology, not mythology, but your methodology in terms of writing this? Because
Yeah, I
again,
had.
it's fiction versus nonfiction.
Right. Well, I had a wonderful way of writing to conquer any form of what we could say. Somebody might say writer's block. By the way, my dad didn't believe in writer's block. He said only amateurs get writer's block. Professionals can't afford it. So I sort of follow that.
He's right about that. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So my the novel I wrote before these, called Crossing Eden, 1,086-page novel set in the spring, summer, and fall of 1929, took 12 years to write. Metropolis and Undercity are really easy to write, but I started my day with the best way to conquer any sort of delay or laziness. I had to I had to write at least one page before I ate or drank anything. Okay, so it didn't matter how long. If it takes me 2 hours, I'm getting really hungry now. Okay, and I'm counting lines. So let's say the previous page ended, let's say 21 lines down, and there may be, I don't know, 30 on the page, right? So I got to write down to 30. Okay, then I got to go up the other side of the next page and go down to 21 lines, and I'm counting them, right? I'm really hungry. I'm counting. How many have I written now? 15? Oh my God, right? Get on with it. And then of course I could write, I was free then the rest of the day to write another 2 or 3 pages. And always in the afternoon was easier than in the morning. But the morning, the result of that was I picked up Metropolis. Yeah, so I told you I'd stopped it. I picked it up it was in the 50s or something like that, 55, something like that. I picked up at the same scene I'd stopped in 2003. And I wrote then the next 620 some odd pages in 9 months
Hmm.
by writing in the schedule. And um, I missed 2 days when I was out of town. Other than that, I wrote on my desktop computer, first in Hawaii, so where I picked it up again, and then back in Santa Barbara. And I wrote, I would sit in front of the computer and write those pages, write that page in the morning, then go get something to eat. Okay. Then then I would come back and write later on. And a couple mornings, I think I wrote 2 pages because I had a really good idea. But other than that, it's a really great way to write because it just doesn't matter. I mean, it doesn't, if you're hungry, it doesn't matter.
No, you
Um,
got to get it out.
got to get it done, or you can't eat,
No,
can't
no,
drink.
or drink. Yeah.
Yeah.
Were you as a fiction writer, and again, I'm trying to differentiate in my mind between a nonfiction writer and a fiction writer. It may not be any difference in this next question, but do you find that it's a lonely occupation or profession that because you're writing X amount of time that you don't get out of the house or you don't get out and meet people or socialize?
No, I think in fact, I was talking to my girlfriend about that vis-a-vis traveling, and I realized that the worlds I create in my fiction are more real than where I've been. So for instance, I've been to Europe several times, and a couple 3-week stays there. And but say for these books, I spend much more time in these locations
Mhm.
than I did in traveling. So they seem more real to me. And so I am meeting people. I'm meeting people that I would never meet otherwise. I don't know anything. I don't know any gypsies, but I spent a while in Undercity writing about this gypsy Fabrizio Padovani. So it's yeah, I never feel like I can't go outside. Look, I finished my writing in the morning and I can go outside, do whatever I want to. I got to come back in the afternoon and write, but it's actually Metropolis was easy to write and so was Undercity. So I'm not slogging around at it. It was really look, I read it's amazing to say, but they were stunningly easy books to write. I
Hmm.
had just the right voice and driven by the muses, giving me all sorts of ideas. I didn't have any blocks either. It's just everything just came float into my head. It's like I was meant to write these two books.
Yeah, so therefore you didn't starve or get thirsty because you were just popping it out.
yeah, it was really yeah. Well, there was a part of Metropolis where my character is at the bottom of a tower. He's got to go up. He was told there's an artist, a painter upstairs he should meet. So he wanders up, knocks on the door, and she says she lets him in, or he goes in, and then he says who she says hello, Julian, and she says her name, and I didn't know her name until I typed it. And she's was the mother of somebody another character early in the book. I didn't know that. She told me the muses told me her name as I typed it,
Hmm.
and it fits everywhere in the book. I thought that was amazing. And then in Undercity, I wrote this one of the vignettes called "The Orphan," and it's about orphans on a train, essentially a concentration camp train, right? All these kids being stolen away to a nefarious end, and I tried to write it at first. It seemed horrible, like I wasn't doing justice to the whole idea of that kind of concentration camp train. So I thought 5 or 6 pages, and then gave it up. And then about a year later, or later on, I think I tried to write it. I was writing from a 13-year-old girl's perspective. It wasn't working. I didn't think it was working. Wrote it from the adult perspective, tried it, failure. Came back a year later, decided to just do it over again. I was going to delete everything and start over. Instead, I read it 13 pages instead of six, and it was perfect. It was perfect. I only had to change a couple of names just because I wanted to. Everything, the little story within it's a girl's diary. She's right. She got a diary on her 13th birthday and is recording everything that happened. But here's the weird thing. I have no memory of writing any of it. Not a si- I have no seriously, I have no memory of it. I
Right.
don't nothing and all the names in the little story. Nope, I have no idea. And not only that, vis-a-vis the concentration camp trains, it's exactly like they were too. So I must have had an idea of how to do it. But writing is mysterious sometimes.
Oh yeah.
Yeah,
Before I let you go, what would you
yeah.
like readers to take away from the book Undercity?
That societies our society is only what we make of it. So we can survive or we can die. We can succeed or fail according to our own dispositions, our own courage. And Undercity is the portrait of all these people trying to survive in a harrowing circumstance, but also finding love in there and life, which is, I think, very, very important at all times.
Well, that's a great way to leave it. My guest has been Monte Schulz. He's author of Undercity. It's a genre blending fantasy sci-fi thriller set in a hidden underground civilization. The book is available on Amazon and all the usual places. And for everything about Monte, you can go to undercitythebook.com and metropolisthebook.com. And you can follow him on Facebook and X. And Monte, thanks for being on the show.
Thank you very much. It was fun.
Was,
Appreciate
and
it.
join us every Thursday for a new schmear on Ira's Everything Bagel.